I'm going to go in the order of solvency, modeling, and then the dissent. The case outweighs the dissent because we have two nuclear war scenarios, both of which will lead to an extinction of the human race, and this can only be prevented by curtailing surveillance by bringing back provisions from the old Freedom Act. The deaths from the nuclear war will be instantaneous, and then the smoke will kill even more people, whereas their bioweapons take time to spread, and things like temperature, humidity can't kill the virus. Additionally, they drop that targeted warrants, which the plan allows can solve for terrorism. Even if they win that bioweapons are possible, the magnitude of global nuclear war and Indo Pak nuclear war outweighs, so the smoke alone will be enough to lead to extinction of human and non-human life. That's tuned. Their impact will only kill people. Now on to solvency. For their circumvention arguments, they dropped their argument about durable fiat and how that the plan that we shouldn't be debating about whether the plan will solve, because we should rather be debating on whether the plan should solve. And they also, when extending the arguments, they didn't respond to any of my partner's arguments from before, and that's why you can't really use them. And so extend our green 15 and tomorrow. They extended their Dillian evidence, but they ignored my 2AC argument about how Dillian is just a reporter and how you should prefer our green 15 and tomorrow 13 evidence that talks about how the new Freedom Act is too watered down and the language isn't specific enough to solve. And so that's why we win solvency. Moving on to modeling, they said that U.S. is not the leader and that domestic surveillance is not key. That's the only argument for this, is that U.S. is doing foreign surveillance, but they also dropped our argument where we said that because everyone does foreign surveillance on each other, they won't be especially mad that the U.S. is doing foreign surveillance on them, and that the modeling advantage talks more about how India's CMS program is about India doing domestic surveillance to their people, and that's why they're going to be modeling US's domestic surveillance practices, because that's what they're trying to adopt. And they said that the economic collapse won't lead to war, but they they didn't really do much with this argument, and it doesn't make really much sense either. Because if the entire world is desperate for money and they're all poor, then they'll be very desperate. There'll be miscalculations. Each country will be in a free-for-all mindset, and that's why you can't use this. Also, they said high stability. That's not true. This is all in the context of politicians. Extend our Bush evidence that talks about how India's nuclear arsenals are protected by the 3 Gs, guards, gates, and guns, and how those are directly tied with the economy, and depending on how the economy fluctuates, it can be susceptible to terrorist attacks or theft, or or the guards could revolt and launch those nuclear weapons. These scenarios are all not talked about in their evidence, so you should prefer ours, and that's why we're winning on modeling. On to the dissent. They say that bioterror outweighs, and then that the dissent turns the case, but that's not true, because they didn't really extend their turn at all. And they say that since 2001 only 50 terror attacks have been stopped, and they also dropped our Wyden evidence, cross-apply the argument from the overview, and they extend our Boston bombing empiric analytic that I made in the 2AC, and my partner made in the 1AR, that talks about how after the Boston bombing, which was a terrorist attack, that there was no rollback, and actually the new Freedom Act solved, which was a curtailment of the actual domestic surveillance practices that were going on. And for the argument against this, they said that it was a lone wolf attack and doesn't count as terrorism. That's wrong. Even if it's a lone wolf attack, it's an instance of terrorism, and that's why that's why we're right. And then they said that Synbio is a reason why they can solve, but that's wrong. Actually, Synbio flows aft, and this is because what Synbio is that scientists or virologists get together and try to create these viruses before the terrorists do in highly guarded complexes, and try to create cures for the potential viruses that the terrorists could make. And that's why actually this is a solvency deficit for their impact. And extending, and then extending our Orgram and Gromley 14 evidences that talks about how terrorists can't obtain bioweapons and it's unlikely they actually drop these evidences, and extend our empiric that talks about how Iran spent $80 million and that was a state actor, so there's no reason why a non-state actor like terrorist groups will be with much less funding and much less technology will be able to create bioweapons, and they have no real impact and they drop most of our arguments against their impact.